There we go. How we doing, Rhonda Thurman?
I'm doing great.
We're recording.
Okay.
How's life?
Great.
All right, here we go. So it's going to be, we did an episode, you and I did an episode about 3 or 4 weeks ago on the school system, and we kind of agreed. I reached out to you and said, hey, I would like to start doing something a little more consistently, because I think an outside perspective with someone like you who's been on the inside, and my goal down the road, by the way, is so we have other guests join us from time to time, maybe a Greg Martin or other people to talk about some of these things more in depth. I'd love to get legislators on that talk about stuff. But I think as a guy that's, I've sent kid to public school, sent 2 kids to private school, and I've got a lot of feeling. And I think once you start paying taxes, you have a right to say what you need to say about some stuff. And I thought a show like this would be good because you've been inside the meat grinder and you still have a lot of contacts in there.
Yeah.
And so we're going to try to pick maybe 1 to 2 topics. I don't know if we'll get to the second topic today about athletics. We might not, because I think this is a pretty deep conversation right here. School vouchers and school choice. Before we start going into any details, and I tend to ramble, and I'll trust you to pull me back sometimes, what's your overall feeling of the school voucher and the school choice?
Well, I love school choice because I think it's very arrogant for 11 school board members to think that they know what's best for every child in Hamilton County.
Right.
You can't possibly know what is going on in the homes of some of these children. You can't possibly know what's going on in every neighborhood. You can't possibly know what's going on with some of the kids who maybe their parent wants them to go to another school because they're being bullied. Maybe they want them to go to get them away from a bad influence. There's lots of reasons that parents may want their child to go to another school other than academics. Matter of fact, academics is not even the top reason that parents send their kids to private school. Most of it is student safety. And so, those are things that you can't say that we should force children to go into schools where they don't feel safe or the parents don't feel like they're safe or that there's an environment that the parents just really don't like. I do not know who gives us the authority to tell students they have to go to those schools.
Well, you also don't get to mandate it and then tell me I don't have a right to say something.
Right, absolutely.
You start penalizing me because my kids don't go. Well, then you don't say, oh, you got to do it, and you also have to do it our way.
Right.
And this is where I think we as the people, the parents, make this so political sometimes, unnecessarily. We start adding stuff into it we shouldn't. I'll give you my quick take on this. The reason I sent my 2 younger ones to private school was because the school system was failing. I watched it when my oldest is kind of towards where you start paying attention. But to me, I ended up paying for a private education for my kids that looked a lot like the education I got when I was in a public school in the 80s. And so it was very frustrating, school safety, but it's also, I know behind the scenes, and people can deny this all they want to. They can message me. I know because I have people over the last 30 years been inside the school system. You're not the first person I've known to be inside the administration or inside the school system on either side. But I know that when the metrics and the way they are measuring success doesn't tend to fit what they need, they change how they measure them. One of the ones we're going to do down the road is how around the nation, we're not immune to it here in Hamilton County, but a lot of times, not every time, we change how we define success so it looks more successful. We pull kids out of certain tracks and put them in other tracks. Guess what? They're not included in the graduation rates, the reading rate, all these things. I know that's happened for a fact.
It absolutely happens.
100%. And let's just give the caveat, and then we'll start going down the rabbit hole of vouchers and school choice. Great people inside the school system. This is not I want to bash the humans. It's this system that they run into.
Well, yeah, and it's nationwide, and things like this don't happen in a vacuum. Whenever a trend starts, how does it get all across the country like that? That was really one thing that intrigued me. I thought, how in Chattanooga, Tennessee, do we end up doing some of the stuff they do in New York? How does that happen? And you realize that it's a teachers union.
Yep.
So the teachers union, in my opinion, needs to go away. They should have been away, and now we don't even have enough teachers here in Hamilton County to be a member of the teachers union that they can even be their representative. They have to vote on a representative because there's not over 50% that are members anymore, or there wasn't when I was on the board in the last few years. But So I do not know why we have to march to their drum. That's the reason I'm glad to see it's being dismantled, and as sooner they can get dismantled, the better off.
You talking
it will
about
be.
the federal education department?
NEA.
Oh yeah,
the
yeah.
NEA.
Oh, yeah.
It needs to go away,
Yeah.
and so that we can, every school. It wasn't meant to be this way. It wasn't meant to be national. The state was given the responsibility to educate students. It was the state. It was not it was not the federal government. It was the state, and we have allowed the federal government to creep in. And if the federal government gives you $1, I've always thought that we should just not accept any federal money at all. And if we didn't, we wouldn't have to live by the rules. We could do, pretty much
every
what we
dollar
want.
comes with a string attached.
Yes.
Every
and even if they give you just 2% of your budget or whatever it is that they give us, they get to control 100%.
Well, and so if everybody's interested, if you're not interested, I understand, but on Of, By, and For the People, headlinesandopinions.com, my constitutional buddy, attorney Eric Buchanan, and I we're recording this on a Tuesday, just yesterday on that program, we talked about NGOs and how they're being used to funnel certain political organizations. So I'm not going to make this political. I will say go listen to it, because one of the things we talked about was how a lot of times teachers' unions are hijacked in certain areas, and they're actually just used to prop up certain political parties. Not all the time, not every time, so everybody can send me the exceptions to the rules, but he brought up research. It's not like he's just saying what he thinks. He's saying what the dollars show. And a lot of times, very little of the money that you're giving is going to actually do stuff for the teachers or the students. It's going to simply keep the union alive.
Well, I will go a step further, and I found this out.
I figured you would.
I was very intrigued years ago because the PTAs at one time, they were just there to keep parents informed about what was going on in the school, ways that they could improve their school, their local school. Now they're hitched up with the teachers union. Mm-hmm. And it seems like all they use the PTAs for now are fundraisers. Mm-hmm. That's everything they do is raise funds. I mean, they have these fundraisers. My granddaughter is getting ready to go into middle school, and I'm so glad, because they don't get hit with all these fundraisers like they do in elementary school. And they do that in elementary school because those cute little kids, it's hard to say no to them. The older they get,
with those candy bars or candles, I'm like, I hate chocolate. I'm buying 12 candy bars.
Yeah, just so they can get off the streets and quit selling this stuff. But anyway, it's. But, that was troubling to me. That's why I wanted all schools. Here's another tangent to go off on. I always wanted schools just to be PTOs. So you keep all the money in your school. I don't know why you should have to send any money to a national PTA organization to fund a scholarship for somebody that nobody in Chattanooga is ever going to win.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just not going to happen. So if you want to give a scholarship, why don't you take schools maybe in your zone there and put a few $1,000s in a scholarship and give it to one of your kids.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk down the road on, do people really go to their zip codes anyway? People don't really go to their zip code schools anymore anyway. So how do you want to start this conversation on school vouchers? Do you want to talk about some data you brought in, some other things? I've got the reasons people support, the reason people may not support. How would you like to start?
Okay. Well, I like vouchers. Mm-hmm. And this is another thing I got into when I talked to Greg Martin, and he is the person you need to have in here to talk to you about vouchers. I found out how little I knew about vouchers when I talked to Greg, because I found out there were three different.
By the way, welcome to the podcast world. You don't have to know anything to talk about it. Go ahead.
But I just don't want to give out any bad information. He did tell me there were it's called the EFS program, the Tennessee Education Freedom Scholarship Program. And you can look that up online, find out who's eligible, who's not eligible, what private schools accept the vouchers, what don't. There are vouchers, and then there's scholarships. Mm. There's two different programs.
Okay.
And this is where it started getting a little confusing to me. Because one of them, he says, I think it's the vouchers that actually take money, like $2,000 of students, away from the school system, but the scholarships don't. They just give out scholarships like you do college scholarships or something like that.
Based on certain criteria?
Yeah, okay. It's based on different things, and that's why I talked to Greg for a while last night, and he sent me a lot of information last night by email. And I just haven't really had time to digest it.
Is that all the stuff he sent you?
No.
This is sending you homework.
No. These are just some things, the reasons that I think that kids should be able to go to private schools, because people say it's money, and let me tell you, money does not fix our education system. I said this from the first time I ran for the school board in 2004, and I'm saying it right now today in 2026. In Hamilton County, we spend, I think in some counties up in around New York, they spend like $35,000 a student.
Mm-hmm.
We score better than they do.
Mm-hmm.
That's just an absolute fact. Some of their kids their reading is abysmal. I mean, ours isn't great, but it's better. And we're in Hamilton, in Tennessee, we are starting to catch up with the COVID, I guess, what am I going to say, I don't know what to call it.
Well, just the slowdown.
Yeah, the slowdown.
They put us behind the 8 ball.
Yeah, and they years of a whole year, almost 2 years of lost learning there, and we're really trying now to kick it up and try to catch up. But some of the other counties are just not doing a very good job at all. But I went through and I have a list. I did go through and find this last night. A list of some of the things that we've done to improve some of our schools. Some schools that have had the most money poured into them are still our lowest performing schools. Now, I just do not understand how that continues to be the case if money is the answer.
Right.
The fact is money is not the answer. I tell you what, a lot of teachers, a lot of my friends who are teachers tell me it's the discipline.
100%.
That we have just allowed the kids to run amok instead of, and we allow these kids that are the behavior problems, we allow them to stay in the classroom and we move the other kids out, which is absolute upside down, which we do so many things in this school system. I don't know what kind of data they're eating up with data over at the school system. I don't know what kind of data tells them that that's the thing to do, but it's just not.
What is there's lies, there's damn lies, and then there's statistics.
That's
there's
right.
Data.
Well, there's data. There's data for everything. You can prove anything.
You can make it look.
Yeah. And so I just had from the, I cannot even go. It would take up this whole podcast to read off some of these things that we have done in these schools. We've lowered the student-teacher ratio. We've provided literacy consultants, provided coaching training for the teachers to help build the staff, secured family partnership specialists, provided consulting teachers, secured principal coaches, provided attendance incentives. It just goes on and on and on.
All these things in the school system.
Yeah, it just goes on and on and on. Like I said, I have pages of things that we've done in some of these schools that are still failing. So you're telling me the children who go to those schools should have to continue to go to those schools. Why? Why should they be trapped in these schools for their kids to continue to be failed by the system with some of the behavior issues and some of the other outside issues that some of these kids have to deal with? Why do we think those kids deserve to have to go to those schools? I personally don't think they should. I know at some point somebody called me a racist because I was for vouchers and things. And I said, why? I'm wanting to rescue those kids because they said I was taking money out of their schools when they need it so desperately. No, I'm trying to rescue the students. I'm not looking at the system. When I got on the school board, I was not there I was there as a representative for parents and their students. And that's who I always wanted to look out for. I'm not there to make sure that the superintendent has a job or everybody has a job. I wanted to get the best education I could for the dollars that we were given by the Hamilton County Commission. That was my job. My job was not to go and beg the commissioners for more money every year. That was not my job, which is what a lot of people wanted us to do. But that was not my job. Let's take the money that they're giving us, see how it can be better spent to educate the students. And I found out that a lot of it was in the schoolhouse. We have a lot of weak principals. We need some really strong principals to take the bull by the horns and get discipline under control.
All right, so I'm going to jump in and give a couple quick thoughts, and then if you're okay with it, let's go through some pros and cons, and then I want to go through whatever's on your list. First of all, it's not surprising to me that when the government gets involved, it becomes confusing.
Right.
Even if I love my state government,
right,
and I think it's very good. As soon as you said, "Oh, it's confusing," yeah, no crap. That's normally how it goes. I think that's sometimes it's on purpose. There's a great movie, Lean on Me. You can go to other movies where when you extract people, whether they're white, black, green, purple, or yellow, if you extract people from a company or from a classroom, and you let the people, you extract the people that are not there for the right reasons, or you, in this case, instead of extracting them, you just apply discipline and accountability, change the behaviors, it increases the odds that the people who want to get something from it will.
Right.
And so there is, there's no bad kid. I get that, but there is a bad system that can allow kids who need discipline and don't get it to corrupt a system, even if it's unintentional. 11-year-old is going to be an 11-year-old. Mm-hmm. And without the appropriate discipline, that 11-year-old can raise ever total hell, no matter what color they are. I've raised 3 of them. Mm-hmm. Without discipline, I watch my kids, and they're white as snow. Mm-hmm. I've watched my kids, when they didn't have the right discipline, lose their minds. Mm-hmm. And then that was the dad's job a lot of times to go in, hey, we're not going to lose our minds anymore. Mm-hmm. The other thing I will say, it's on a lot of times to me, this can be, if you want to see it through a lens of race, I'm not telling you it's not always, sometimes not there, but you can see it however you want to. This is helping kids, no matter what color they are, take the money that follows a student and go to a better opportunity. And I think it's Alabama. I just posted the meme. 4th grade reading is now better than New York's and California's. Right. And they spend a fraction of
what. Some of them are $35,000 a year.
Yeah.
Plan. This is insane.
So,
crazy.
Do you have data you want to bring up, or do you want me to start going through?
No,
let's
just go through and we'll see what you.
Well, here's some reasons why. And what I want to do is I want to pull out the reasons people are for it. And when you hear something, I want you to kind of stop and say something, and then I want to make sure we get to that paperwork you got in front of you.
Well, I don't know.
Oh yeah, we got time for this. Parents get more educational options. Competition. This is one I think is a big one. Competition may improve the public schools. What do you think about that one? Do you agree with that one?
Oh, I absolutely think competition will help.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, I do.
Yeah.
Because and I even like competition inside the school system. See, this is another thing that just is really, in the old Hamilton County school system, we did not have school zones. We had bus routes. Mm-hmm. If you wanted to go to, say, Red Bank, and you lived in Soddy Daisy, at the time, that was the way it was. Yeah. Some kids from Soddy Daisy would come to Red Bank. I went to Red Bank, so I know. But you had to provide your own transportation.
Yeah.
If there was room in that school, and it was up to the principal whether they allowed you to come or not, you could go to Red Bank if you provided your own transportation. There were none of these zone Nazis that were out trying to see where you lived, and we have actually had school systems in the past, or schools in school administration in the past, who have literally gone to students' houses to be sure you lived where you said you lived to go to XYZ school. Mm-hmm. And I thought, we're paying somebody $60,000 a year to go around looking people's windows. Really, this is insane. Mm-hmm. So when we merged, and one reason that the city didn't like that is because the county was getting a lot of city students at that time, and the county would take them because we got the money for them. We got the money for them when they would come to the county. But when the school systems merged, Jesse Register, I always put my hand over my heart. He was the worst thing that ever happened to the school system. But anyway, okay. He made school zones. You had to go to school in your school zone.
And that doesn't coincide with zip codes, right?
No.
As far as
because my zip code where I live, even though I live in Fallingwater, and our students are all zoned for Soddy Daisy, my zip code's Hickson 37343. Mm-hmm. So it has really nothing to do with zip codes. Okay. It's school zones. But you had to go to school in your zone. Well, that ticked a lot of people off because some people were used to going to another school outside of their school zone. And so we said, no, you have to go to school in your school zone. Well, you know what a lot of those people did? They left and went to private school. That's exactly what happens. When you start demanding people, and some people had the means to do that, others don't. These vouchers and things, in my opinion, are a way for those students to get to kind of level the playing field. But let me say this as well. We can open, and we have started doing that in the last few years, because I said we can have school choice within our own school system. Mm-hmm. If we had a school board years ago, and I fought for it diligently, I fought for school choice within our school. Open up the schools like we used to. If you have open seats in your school, let the kids go to your school. And we do have school choice now, that when you can go to those schools that you want to go to, but you have to be on the school choice list. Why do you have to be on the school choice list? Go wherever you want to go. At one time, we had the majority transfer, where if you were a minority and where you were a majority in your school, you could go where you would be a minority. And we've had all kinds of dickering trying to work around the system. Just open it up and let kids go anywhere in Hamilton County they want to go. But if you're a discipline problem, you have to go back to your own school.
Yeah, so the discipline is something I think we might do a whole episode, because I've got a couple people I'd like to bring in on that one. Yeah. Because I think but I want you to sit in on these, because you can ask some really good questions. And I think in a minute, instead of going through the things that are pro, because I think people will know why we're pro, I'm going to go through the cons. Okay. That'll be some good conversations. Okay. But that goes back to what you were saying real quick. What happened when parents are not going to sacrifice their kids to your experiment, your educational experiment? That's why you have 45,000 roughly students when it merged, and 45,000 now, and Chattanooga's blown up in population. So you have to ask yourself, where have those students gone? Because they just, when you grow like that, there 10,000, 15,000 students went somewhere. We've had to grow with the kids. So let's do this. Let's go through the cons. This will start good conversations. Here's the first reason a lot of people give that they don't like school choices or vouchers. Public money is diverted from public schools. So opponents argue vouchers reduce funding available for traditional public schools, will still educate the vast majority, and which will still educate the vast majority of Tennessee students. That's the whole purpose of it. It will defund, but there's a short transition period, I think, where the state is going to kind of supplement the schools as they transition over if students leave. But if the system's failing, I'm not sure we should keep funding it the way we're funding it anyway. Isn't this trying to teach the school system a lesson?
I still think the money should follow the student. You are paying taxes for your child to get an education. You should be able to spend it where you want. And I can see some of what they're saying, but here again, are they really worried about the education, or are they worried about the system?
That's it.
Are you worried about, most of them are worried about the system, because this is where when schools start, when you start losing enrollment, or you should lose administrators and you should lose teachers and stuff. If the enrollment goes down, that's just common sense. It would be no corporate company could withstand losing business, which is students are their business, losing business and not lose people at the top. It just does not happen.
If you lose 30% of your customers, you probably don't need as many people to fulfill the orders of the widgets.
That's true.
In a business, right?
Yeah, and then too, by the same token, McDonald's, every time they open 4 or 5 new franchises or something, they don't go hire a couple of different supervisors or whatever.
Yeah.
But anyway, I guess that's the argument that they're going to continue to use, but they're going to have to jump on the bandwagon that they cannot continue status quo either.
Well, this one will help with that. Private schools are not held to the same accountability standards. Me and you were talking before we came on. That's another reason they're against it. And my thought was, I'll let you kind of tell me what you think. The accountability standards we put in place is the problem. The reason we're having this conversation is they don't seem to be really working like we think they should. So why would I want the same exact standard to be held in place from my private school?
Well, what standard exactly are they talking about? Because some of the schools have a much higher standard than they do in the public school.
I would estimate quite a few of them, if not most.
Yeah, have a higher standard. So I really don't understand that argument, because they are in business. If they cannot draw students into their school, they're going to go out of business.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So they're going to do the best thing academically that they can to draw students into their school.
Yeah.
So, and I think the school system should do the same thing.
Well, and so these next two may hit where I think you'll find some common ground with these folks. So rural areas that don't have as many opportunities for private schools, this is maybe the biggest challenge, because my thought was, government can't fix it for everybody. Mm-hmm. There are going to be, my analogy is public bus doesn't go to every door. Mm-hmm. And so there are people who are going to be left out. Is that one of these people that are going to have to struggle with this?
Well, yeah, the rural communities are really the ones that are suffering with this, because there are no private schools. But this is where you get into charter schools. Mm. Some of these rural counties can start charter schools. And here again, I'm going to give Angie at Ivy Academy, I'm going to give her kudos that anybody that wants to start a charter school needs to talk to Angie Markham, and she can help you get one started. And I would think she would do that for just about anyone, to give you some good ideas about what you need to do. And you need to talk with Angie. She is fantastic. But some of these counties, that's what they need to do to give the school system where they live a little bit of competition. It's really not that hard to start a charter school, as long as you keep your standards here again high. That might be a good thing for them, an option.
How about higher income families may benefit the most? The critique is they argue voucher recipients, some of those were already planning to go to private schools, meaning taxpayers may subsidize families who are already going to pay higher tuition for private schools anyway.
Well, this was a thing that when I first got on the school board, I just realized there was so much animosity from some people for the private schools. And my thing was this: well, these people that have their children in private schools are paying for a public education too, so they're paying for an education twice.
Yeah.
Why are we so angry with them? And like I mentioned to you earlier, Clint, what if all these people in all these private schools, and I never have been able to get a hard, fast number, because there are some private schools that I didn't even know about, some hard, fast numbers about exactly how many kids are in private school. What if they showed up at their school door this coming year in August? Where would we put them?
Absolutely.
Where would we should really be thanking them, because we don't have the capacity to take them in to their school.
That's why you can lower the teacher-student ratio a lot of times, is because you don't have this influx of 5, 10, 15,000 students that, again, to your point, we don't know how many are sitting out there.
And another thing, what I would really like to do, Clint, and I was going to do this when I got off the board, and I just really don't have the connections to be able to know who to do this, but I always wanted to have a website, because I figured out that a lot of times parents stay in the schools that they're in is because they don't know their options.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted a website to where it had every private school listed, their tuition. A lot of schools don't want you to know their tuition, but to put their tuition down and to tell exactly, in all the charter schools, all the magnet schools, give them all their options. What you have to do in order to get to this school. You have to provide your transportation. Is it provided for you? What is the cost? Uniforms. I mean, some parents get all hung up on uniforms. They either want them or they don't. And some parents will change schools for their kids because they don't have to wear uniforms, or they do have to wear uniforms. I mean, There's a lot of craziness going on there. But anyway.
Again, I think that's a discipline matter. We'll talk about
it. It is. Absolutely, yeah. But regardless, that's the parents' prerogative to choose a school. But I would really like to see a website set up with all the information about every school in Hamilton County that you could just click on it and say, if my child wants to go there, do they have scholarships available? What do I have to do to apply for one of these scholarships? Do they accept this Tennessee scholarship money? Do they accept Tennessee's voucher money? Those are kind of things, because parents a lot of times don't know where to go for that information. And I think if it was made easier for them, a lot more of them would pursue other opportunities for their students.
I agree. One of the things that people say, there's two other things I want to bring up as far as cons, and then we'll go back to just general conversation. One is, so the voucher may not even cover, and I'm telling you, the word may is silly, cover full cost of private school. It's not going to cover. No. I think it's $7,000, $8,000 that's going to go. It's not going to cover. It'll cover maybe some private schools and lower grades. Mm-hmm. Maybe it'll cover half sometimes, but again, a solution can't fix all the problem. It's, can we do better? And sometimes we can't do the perfect thing get in the way of, so we can't do something a little better. Mm-hmm. And so to that critique, I would say, yeah, it probably won't. But if you're telling me that I now can cut my expense by half, 30%, 20%, whatever it is, and like what I did, make a sacrifice, or family members help, or whatever it takes, if we then can do something, again, because we don't want to put our kids on the altar, sacrifice of your experiment as education to be everything to all the kids, then I'm willing to do that. People will work a little harder. They'll spend a little less. They'll do what they can to get their kid the education. And so, no, it probably won't cover it. The other one is public schools may face mixed cost problems. Even if a student leaves, the district still must pay for the buses, the buildings, utilities, staffing, and maintenance. That's That's the purpose of this, in my opinion, is to teach the schools a little bit of a lesson on that as, do better, focus on education. That mission drift, in my opinion, is a real issue. You've trying to be the mom and the dad, the political agenda. You're trying to be everything to all people, feed every kid all the time. All these things can be problems we can deal with inside the community, right? But I can't expect my government to fix that.
Yeah, well, one of the reasons, and I wondered why some of the representatives voted against school vouchers and things, because some of the people that were very, what I consider to be conservative and Republicans and stuff like that, they voted against it. So I called to find out exactly why, and someone said, well, it's not in the Constitution that we can do this. Well, our Tennessee state Constitution here, it says that we are responsible for education. So we can pretty much do what we want. Plus, and let me tell you another thing that's not in our Tennessee state Constitution, pre-K. Pre-K is not there. It says K through 12. It says not a word about pre-K. Right. But they don't have any problem at all funding that.
That's babysitting.
Now, if you want to get into something that's costing us a lot of money, it costs a lot of money to build classrooms for pre-K because they all have to have their own little bathrooms. I think every class has to have their own bathroom, and there's lots of things about pre-K there. It's not in the Tennessee state. It says K through 12. That was not our charge, and people used to get very angry with me about that, but that was still not our charge. If we were going to have to cut something, that was one place that I was looking at cutting, because what we did when we started pre-K, I'm getting way off track, but when we started pre-K, we put all of these church schools, pre-K, out of business.
That's where I went to a pre-K church school.
That's right. Then we put them all out of business because then it was free. The church was providing for it. So all of those people lost their jobs. Mm-hmm. Nobody cried about that. So now the pre-K teachers and stuff make as much money as a high school teacher. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm sorry, but that is not right, that the teachers union will stand by that all day long because they're teachers or whatever. But you cannot tell me that a high school algebra teacher is not doing a whole lot more than a pre-K teacher. I'm sorry.
No, and I'm going to add this in there. I'm not judging people who use pre-K, by the way.
I'm not either.
Too. I would have. We've created this society. It's our fault that where most families have to have the two-parent working family. I'm not. Right. Our single moms. I'm not using. I've used it. I'm not. It's not a judgment
I'm not either.
thing.
I'm not either.
I'm saying it becomes a babysitting service, just like you used to use your church. Now you're using this again. Though I hate to say this. I trusted what my church was teaching my kids a little more than when I trust my government to teach my kids. That's me with my.
Well, I'm wondering how much teaching is going on at
There's not.
Anyway.
It's lay down, take a nap, eat some fruit.
But like I say, if you want to get down to the technicalities and the legal thing, pre-K is not in our Tennessee state Constitution unless they've added it in the last couple of years.
Do you know if the vouchers are school choice goes with homeschooling too?
I think so. I think it does. That was another thing I was kind of confused about which one would cover the homeschool. That would be a good question for us. And and Greg Martin has a great insight to this because he was also on the school board.
If we can maybe the next month, I think we do one in June too. Mm-hmm. Maybe the next time I'd like to get him in. What we'll do is we'll record a shorter with him to go some through these questions as an addendum. Yeah, because I'd love to get Greg. I mean, if we can make that happen.
He has a real unique perspective, like I say, since he was on the school board at one time. So he's in the commission. So he's seen it from the school board side, the funding side, and now from the legislative side at the Tennessee as a Tennessee representative. So he can give a lot of insight about that. And like I said, I don't want to give anybody bum information, but yes, I do think that the homeschoolers do qualify for a lot of that.
One of the things that was on the pro list, and I'm going back over to our list real quick, and we've touched on it briefly, but you kind of said it, I think, best. I just want to make sure people hear this. It does give race out, color out of it. It gives people who are low income, because I've already told you I was middle income when I sent my kids to school, but people who are in low income, it gives them options too. So if you have 100 families, just using the hypothetical number, and only a handful of them can extract their child from a system that they don't see serving their child and then better their child's education, why are we saying no to that? Simply because we consider it not fair to all 100 kids ought to have to stay in a system that's not working. To me, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Well, it was amazing to me that Greg said even a lot of the scholarships were not even claimed.
Oh, really?
So that tells me that a lot of parents do not know what to do. They're scared about the process. They don't know the deadlines, and sometimes the deadlines are a whole lot sooner than starting to school in August. Maybe the deadline could have been back in February the year before. You know what I'm saying? I don't know exactly when the deadlines are, but sometimes parents let it sneak up on them, and they just get frustrated trying to figure it all out. And so there's money out there that's still being left on the table, even at that. And
But it's a relatively new thing anyway. It's only been in place for a year or so.
A couple of years.
Yeah,
Well, I think this is second year probably. Yeah.
And there's something called the hold harmless funding provision, which was what I was alluding to earlier, which will help fund the schools as they transition if they start losing kids. And my hope is that the school will start trimming off stuff. And I don't even think a lot of the money, and you may correct me, I'll say something. Let's make an assumption. Let's see if Rhonda hits me pretty. I'm on the school board. I'm making an assumption. This is fun. I might get the wrath of Rhonda. This makes me feel good. I don't think as much spending goes to the home office as we would think as far as percentage of budget. I could be wrong, but I don't think it's as much as we would think, because I think a lot of the stuff we do that's the waste, what I call waste, is inside the schools themselves. And hopefully it will have them trim some of that off so where they can get some of these kids back into the school system. She's smiling, ladies.
Well, I will just tell you, there's not people in the central office that are overworked. That's all I'm going to say. Okay?
Overworked?
They're not overworked. Well, some of them may, but a lot of them are not. Now, because they make a lot of busy work, they're just making a teacher's job so hard with all of the paperwork, with all of the regulations, with all of that. They're just overwhelming the teachers between that and the discipline problems. The teachers just throw in their hat a lot of times, say, I'm done with this. I'm not doing it anymore. Learning should be about the teacher and the student, and it has gotten so far from that some teachers can't even teach anymore. They say teaching's not fun anymore. They're so regimented. You have to be teaching this on this day and that on this day. Mm-hmm. Well, that's not realistic, because sometimes teachers, may have a couple of students that are struggling, and maybe they're not getting the point across to their student. They might need to take another day for that. But the next day, if you get evaluated and they come in and you're still on the thing you should have been teaching yesterday, somebody's getting written up, and it puts them under a lot of pressure they shouldn't be under. So in order to regulate all of that, you have to have all of these people at the central office going around and checking and making sure that you're on task all the time. Those are the people that really get on my nerves, because you have some people over at the central office that haven't been teachers, haven't been in the classroom, but 4 or 5 years, they're coming in trying to tell a teacher, 20, 25-year veteran teacher that knows how to teach kids how to do her job, and teachers resent that. They don't like it, and we've been doing it for years. And as far as I can tell, it has not improved one iota.
So I'm going to say 2 quick things here, and I really appreciate you having this conversation, by the way. And this all goes into the school choice and school voucher, because these things we're talking about right now are playing into why parents want to move.
And you tell me, let me tell you something. Yes, private schools could not afford to do what we do in the school system. They can't afford to have these people go around, monitor their teachers. They hire the teachers to do the job, and if the kids are not performing, they can get rid of them. Now, like I say, you look at the structure of a private school versus those of a public school, and you will find out there are so many different layers. A principal used to pick up the phone, well, I may have even said this the last time, and call the superintendent. Now you have to go through this person and that person.
Community representative or liaison.
And then you go through 2 or 3 different layers before you can even get to the superintendent. Yeah. I mean, Don Upton, principals used to call him, and Don may cuss you out before you got off the phone, but at least you knew where everybody stood.
My principal used to call my dad. My principal, hey, Joe, you want to do it or you want me to? So,
but I mean, I'm just talking about even things at the school, as far as running a school.
I'm going to say something about that real quick, because here's my take on it from the outside looking in, and then from any business success I've had has been very tiny. I've had better than some, a lot less than a lot of my friends. But when inside the school system, I know for a fact there are people, going back to how we started this, good people in the system, right? So talking about the home office, I know there are people that leave that office because they're really good at their job and it's not rewarded. There are people that are stuck in they're doing a lot of hard work, because you got 6,000 employees, 45,000 kids, 80 schools or whatever it is, there's something along those lines. My numbers may be off a little bit.
I think when you pull everybody in that work for the school system, there's like 50,000. I mean,
50,000?
Well, I'm talking
that
about
work?
The cafeteria, the whole janitor, the whole smear.
Well, whatever it is, it's a big number.
Yeah.
And so when you have a handful of people doing a lot of work, what happens, in my opinion, is the people who are really taking their job serious are slowed down by the people that are hired to do the busy work, and nobody knows what the hell they do. They're making high 5 figures, low mid 6 figures, and everybody's looking going, what are they doing? What's their real job? And then there's people over here that are doing the work of 2 or 3 people, the work that has to get done, and they get burnt out. In a good company, that's called culture. You're developing a culture of people that are going to run off people who are good at their jobs because they now are held at the same standard of people who are half-assing their jobs. And so the other thing, the struggle of the teacher, and I'll let you say whatever you want to, the discipline. If a teacher in my world that I grew up with, if they saw Rhonda and Clint in the same classroom, which we would have been, because I'm not in a higher performing classroom, I would have been in a different classroom.
Well, neither was I.
But if they saw Clint and Rhonda in a classroom, this is at least how I grew up, and Rhonda was learning at this pace and Clint was learning at this pace, the struggle the teacher had wasn't around discipline as much. It was around learning. They loved that. How can I help Clint learn this? But when the struggle then shifts from teaching the children to I'm losing control of the classroom. I don't know how to handle cell phones. I'm now in trouble with the parent and my superintendent and my principal. I'm just going to do whatever it takes not to get fired because I got 5 or 10 years left till I can retire. That's a different struggle that they're not equipped to handle.
That's absolutely
so. The definition of struggle has changed in the last 30 years from teaching kids to just managing my time.
Yeah.
That's a bad thing.
Yeah, you're right.
And that's why parents want to leave.
They're under so much pressure for things that really have nothing to do with educating the kids.
None, very little. And you can't do that till you do these.
That's right.
What else? Did you have something on your phone?
Yeah, I was just looking here because I thought this was correct. It says Hamilton County School System spends an estimated $16,786 per student, which is higher than the Tennessee state average of $12,749. So we are really spending more than a lot of people, but if it was all, I think so many times, if this was all in the classroom, it's like if we get another dollar, they'll say, well, maybe we can hire somebody else to make it better. Maybe we can hire somebody else to make it better. And that's just not it. You just need to, I think teachers would rather have more discipline. Well, I don't think, I know. They would rather have more discipline, and they also want their administration to back them up.
On the discipline part
on the
especially.
Discipline. Not just on the discipline, but on one of my favorite principals was Tobin Davidson. I may have told you this before. But Tobin, I remember this has been years ago, but they were calling him about some things going on up at his school. He said, leave me alone. Just leave me alone. Let me deal with my faculty. Mm-hmm. We will handle these situations. I don't need to run to the central office every time I have a discipline problem at my school. I can handle it here. My teachers are doing the job. I hired good faculty. I'm not going to breathe down their neck every day, going around seeing what they're teaching, making sure their own little tasks and stuff like that. I mean, but now you have a lot of people that are principals that won't say anything because they can't go anywhere and make the amount of money that they're making as a principal. Some of our principals make very good money, and they can't. And so they just, like you say, they just kind of bide their time till it's time to retire.
Well, and they're going to get in trouble with parents. And I hate to say this because me and my buddy Eric on Of By and For the People, none of these little issues exist in a vacuum. In other words, it's not isolated, siloed. They're gears and they connect. And so because we have a society that we've allowed parents to give passes to kids, Rhonda's a principal, Rhonda's a teacher now, little Clint gets in trouble. My mom and dad in the 80s, 70s, and 90s, for the most part, was going to come down and find out if you were right. And then I was going to get in trouble twice. Mm-hmm. Now I come down immediately and I'm just mad at the teacher. Mm-hmm. I'm mad at the principal, and I'm going to find any way possible it's not my kid's fault. And I'm not saying that's across the board, but those voices now get louder and they get all the attention. And now it seems like, from a guy that's not involved in it, we're making decisions and policy based off that.
Well, and then too, we have another thing we're having to deal with we never had to deal with before: social media.
That's a big one.
Yeah, you have parents. They get mad at something at school and they blast it all over Facebook, and maybe it has happened personally to me. involving someone in my family, and it was all a lie, Clint. It was all a lie. And then too, we had to get the tip line. People call if a teacher makes a parent mad or coach makes a parent mad.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, they've called the tip line and they're calling in everybody. They're making you sit in meetings all day long trying to figure out if you've actually done what they said you've done. And we've actually had people get up from those meetings when they're being raked over the coals and say, "I quit," and leave. Now, and some of our really, really good teachers and really, really good coaches have just done that over nonsense.
But that's what I'm talking about. You run good people out when you tolerate that kind of stuff.
Right.
And that's one of the issues. Good people left. So what you're left with are people who either play the game or want to support a broken system. And again, all these things may seem like tangents. They're all going into this big recipe of why do parents want to extract little Sally, little Tom, and move them to a different option, is because they don't want to send their kids where they're in there where other parents aren't going to accept responsibility for their child's behavior, where Rhonda can't deal with Clint learns a little slower than Kim. So let's help Clint learn a little bit and move him to the next level. They don't want to send their kids someplace that's not going to focus on the education. I'll raise them. You help educate them. Yeah, that's the job.
Then another thing that teachers are having to deal with, because I look at things, what they're having to deal with now, they used not to have to deal with. I mean, they used to go in and just teach. And now you have the problem of we have such an influx of immigrants, legal, illegal, it really doesn't matter, but their teachers are having to deal with the situation. And they're having to take so much time with those students. Now, this is what I hear from a lot of schools, especially in certain areas. They're spending so much time with those students that the regular Hamilton County
is that a language barrier for the most part? I would assume it is.
Oh, well, yeah, it's a language barrier. And then, too, when you get them into school, you don't know the schools they've been in, where they are. You have to evaluate them and figure it out. I mean, we've not created a separate, and I don't mean we should. This is just a conversation, and this is not a political thing. Yeah.
My world is, if we're going to have an influx, I want to personally, for this podcast, even though it may be politically convenient, I want to remove the legal, illegal part of it. That's for by and for the people. Right. Exactly. What I want to talk about, if you're comfortable with it, is just in the last few minutes is, it seems like that would be an actual good place to have a separate track. When you come in, we're going to have a place that you go to get evaluated, and then we're going to teach you how to speak better English before we stick you in a classroom.
In Florida, there's some schools, and I forget exactly what they call them. They have a name, but they're like a transition school. You come in, they teach you English, and it goes K through 12. You know, you have these here working with these students, and then put them into the classroom. That's what we need to do, but instead we put them in, and we're trying to be all inclusive with everybody, and it's just very confusing. And a lot of them come in the middle of the year, and teachers are having to try to evaluate them and plus juggle their own students.
And it's not the 9-year-old's fault.
No.
And it's not the 9-year-old's fault.
Oh,
they're
absolutely
suffering.
It's not.
They're suffering, and the other little 9-year-old that wants to learn is suffering, and the teacher's suffering because a system can't seem to make better decisions, in my opinion.
So then here we go back to the vouchers. This is a lot of times when parents see this going on, that their kids are getting left behind because of having to deal with these other students or whatever they're having to deal with. If their kids are not getting the attention they deserve or not getting the education they deserve, they're going to go to other areas. And I can't blame parents for doing that.
Can't either. I will call on something right now that I would love. I think we ought to have a Doge go through the school system.
Oh, absolutely.
I think it would be. I've got like 3 or 4 people that I know personally that I would volunteer, like tribute on that show where they would get sacrificed on the public altar of social media. But they would be fantastic at going through there and going, why are we spending money here? Let's cut that. Let's do this. Now, it would be horribly painful, and they would be called every bad name in the book, but we need to do it.
But, like I've talked about one time before, I was given heads up that there was, and a lot of people inside the system can tell you a lot of these things, but when we were given unlimited vacation accrual days for employees, it was insane. It was total insanity, the amount of money that we were paying out to people who left. We were paying people checks of over $100,000 a year years ago. For when I first got on the school board, we were giving people checks of over $100,000 a year in unused vacation days when they retired. Insanity. So one year we had about 10 retire. That was $1 million when it was not funded. Things like that are crazy. They can't believe things like that happen, but they do.
They do.
And it did, and they've gotten a handle on it now. But anyway, that's.
Yeah. So here's what I want to do. I want to send an invitation out to Greg Martin.
Yes.
I want to I'll have 10 questions for him. Here's what we might do, Greg, if you're listening, we'll just go through the cons. I want him to address the cons and then give us the detail, because I think what is the details would probably address a lot of the fears that people have on why they don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can just have a conversation based off the other stuff we've discussed here today. And I don't know what the next topic's going to be. I've written it down because I've changed my mind a little bit. Do you have a topic you want to talk about next time?
Well, it doesn't make any difference.
Well, I would like to talk. Let's stick with what I said. I'm not going to be. I want to so we can prepare. Let's talk about how and why and when it all started. Specifics, if you have them. If not, I can do some research too on how we're measuring success, how we've changed the standards to then change the statistics we present to the public.
Yeah, and we don't only do that just as a system. We do that school by school. Larry Grome, when I was on the school board, did a research on that about how different schools had different grading scales.
Okay.
And also now that teachers are allowing students to turn in their work late and still getting 100% credit for it when they turned it in late, which was
little things like that, because that affects how the teacher gets.
People don't understand that you're exactly correct.
Yep.
Teachers don't want it to look bad on them, so they will do whatever tweaking they have to do to make it just a little bit better, because they're so big on
how they're getting judged different.
Yeah.
It's not really truly education anymore. It's all the metrics of you got to hit certain standards. The standards are set by us. It's not, is Clint any better at reading?
Yeah.
I need to make Clint look like he's better.
An A used to be what, 90?
94, wasn't
94,
it?
I think.
93.
Now down to 90.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Just little things like that.
I had friends, and maybe they still can. This is where I think they pull them into different tracks, and we got to roll out of here. But I had friends that failed. They got held back. And now they were in the 7th grade and I was in the 8th. We were in the same building.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't a bunch, but now I think those people might be taken out and started over. I don't know how that works anymore. I don't even know if people can still fail. Maybe they can. But I knew, listen, there was a guy that he beat me up for several years because I thought he drove to school in 6th grade, but he apparently he had been held back a few times, and he would shave before he would come to 6th grade. So I
went to a junior high school with a guy that drove. Okay.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, I was glad when he finally got promoted and he was up, because I got tired of him. I got tired of taking a swing at a guy that I know I couldn't whip. So shout out to Brett. I'm sure he's doing great now. Rhonda, thank you. Is there anything on your list, Bo, in the last few minutes you wanted to get to?
I just have so much. Like I say, 20 years of this is just.
Well, I don't want to hog this up. So I don't want to steal your spotlight.
This is you're good. Like I said, the vouchers, I would really like to give a little bit more information, but I don't want to give bum information.
Right.
And I still don't have it real clear in my mind. But I would really like for parents to have more information about that, get it out there to them, because a lot of them don't even know this. And when Greg told me there was so much of this money that was still on the table, and a lot of it had not even been, was still there. That tells me that parents are not really knowing exactly what's going on, or maybe they just feel like throw their hands up and say, "Well, there's no way I'd qualify," or maybe the application process is too arduous,
or just new, and people they don't know yet. So let me do this. I'll reach out to Greg. I'm friends with him a little bit. I'll reach out to him and see if maybe he can come in between now and the next time we have ours.
Okay,
and we can do like a more recent update on this, so we're not having to wait a month. And then when we come in here, we can do the standards and testing and how we've lowered it. I think that would be a fun one too. All right, Rhonda, thank you very much. All right, bye, everybody. That was good. What do you